that made America. 20 years before he led a revolution, a young George Washington stumbled into a very different kind of war. His orders were to get the French to leave the Pennsylvania woods.
Fire!
But the Indians, the third force in this contest, had motivations of their own. This incident in 1754 triggered a war that spread from these woods to the Caribbean, Africa, Europe, and India. The war's outcome would decide which of two great European empires would dominate North America. And caught in the middle were the Indians.
The French claim all the land on one side of the river, and the English claim everything on the other. Where does the Indian land lie?
As they pursued their own aims, the Indians were drawn deeper into the struggle. In 1755, with the help of a small French force, they defeated the powerful British Army and killed General Edward Braddock. But by 1759, Britain was scoring victories, and the French were struggling to maintain hold on their territory.
The fortress at Louisbourg has fallen. The way to Quebec is now wide open. Now, how shall we hold the West?
Can we, in good conscience, supply our men in this conflict?
The colonial legislators are asking for the same rights historically accorded to the British subjects of the king, that they give their consent to being taxed.
If his lordship, if anyone, compels us to pay a penny and we submit, then he may compel us to pay a pound. A fart for his troops, then.
But to Loudon, it's beyond comprehension that these colonials could refuse his orders. But refuse they did. Money and principles were driving a wedge between the British and the colonists. The colonists feared that this expensive war would bankrupt their governments. But more than that, they feared it would destroy their rights. The colonists were putting the Crown on notice that they would not stand to be treated as inferiors. They saw themselves as full-fledged subjects of the king, who just happened to live on the western side of the Atlantic. Just when the impasse seems unbreakable, 2 letters arrive from William Pitt, a brilliant politician who has joined the king's government as Prime Minister.
Sir, the king having judged proper that the Earl of Loudon should return to England.
The first letter fires Loudon. Even better, the second letter promises reimbursement for military expenses.
To furnish all the men so raised with arms, ammunition, and tents.
By simply granting the colonists most of what they want, Pitt changes the mood overnight. Unlike his predecessors, he understands that the colonists yearn to be recognized as loyal members of the British Empire. He knows that to win this war, Britain needs the full participation of these troublesome British subjects. These demanding and headstrong colonists. These Americans. Pitt's new policies make all the difference to Britain's ability to fight the war. Thousands of colonials joined General Abercrombie's army. By July 1758, when he is ready to attack Fort Ticonderoga, Abercrombie has a force of nearly 16,000 men, more than the population of Boston. This will be a fully allied effort, provincials fighting alongside British redcoats.
Have you found an opening yet? You're an imbecile.
Major General James Wolfe, a sickly but highly ambitious officer, is determined to prove himself on the battlefield. For 2 months, he has played a waiting game. His army is camped on the opposite shore, ready to take the city of Quebec. If only he can draw the Marquis de Montcalm into battle. But the Marquis does not want to engage the British.
Alors, let Wolfe amuse himself where he is. If we drive him off, he may go someplace where he can really do us harm.
After 3 months of trying, Wolfe still has not managed to capture the city. If he doesn't attack Quebec before winter sets in, he'll be forced to give up the siege and the chance for a crucial victory in the French and Indian War. The British are poised to expel the French army from Canada. They now control the St. Lawrence River, cutting off France from North America's interior. They could soon control the continent. But first, they must take the enemy stronghold at Quebec. But Quebec is proving impenetrable, perched on a triangle of land atop steep cliffs, where water surrounds the city on 2 sides. Wolfe first attacks from the east, only to see nearly 500 of his men killed or wounded at the Battle of Montmorency. Many excellent officers hurt in this foolish business, he writes. Frustrated, Wolfe lashes out.
I have changed my measures and laid waste to the country. Partly to engage the Marquis de Montcalm, and partly in return for many insults offered to our own people upon our own frontiers.
Wolfe orders his redcoats to burn the settlements beyond Quebec. 1,400 houses are torched. But the capital of New France is far from giving up. British forces try to bombard Quebec into submission. The fires that engulf the city produce some of the most horrifying moments of the entire war. Wolfe grows desperate. He has fallen victim to fever, and so have his soldiers. By summer's end, a third of his army is unfit to serve. The British have been shelling the city for 6 weeks. And still, Montcalm will not come out to fight.
My antagonist has wisely set himself up in inaccessible entrenchments, so I can't get at him without spilling a torrent of blood, and that perhaps to little purpose.
Wolfe believes he may soon die and fears his failure to act will bring him disgrace. Finally, in September, his attention is drawn to a path leading up steep cliffs to the plains just west of Quebec. In an audacious nighttime maneuver, he orders 4,500 men to scale the steep cliffs. It takes them less than 5 hours. The element of surprise works. By dawn, the British assemble on the plains of Abraham just outside the city walls. Wolfe employs a novel formation, spreading his men out in 2 ranks instead of the traditional 3 to cover the half-mile width of the plains. Montcalm knows that the British are the more disciplined soldiers, but the British line seems especially thin. He believes that a column of troops can smash it. It's a classic European battle that will depend on the skill and precision of each side's infantry. But as the French advance, order breaks down. Their line becomes ragged.
We had not gone 200 paces before the left was too far in the rear and the center too far in front.
The French begin to fire before they're within range. The British do not flinch.
Cherchez vos armes! Vite, monte! En avant! Marche!
Wolfe waits to the last for maximum effect. The British attack is overwhelming. A British sailor would later note, the entire battle lasts no more than 10 minutes. Decimated, the French flee back to the city. 4 days later, they surrender. During the battle, Wolfe is wounded in the wrist and the chest. When asked if he needs a surgeon, he replies, "It is needless. It is all over with me." Wolfe becomes a hero throughout the British Empire, and his death glorified in a succession of idealized paintings. Across the battlefield, Montcalm is shot in the abdomen. The depiction of his death is even more fanciful. In fact, he died not on the battlefield, but in a doctor's house back in town. The paintings have also left the lasting impression that this was the climactic and decisive end of the war.
In truth, it was anything but. The French and Indian War would drag on for another year. The real turning point came when the Indians tipped the balance of power. In 1759, the Iroquois made a momentous decision to abandon 50 years of neutrality and ally themselves with the British.